Hey guys, today's topic of discussion is meat substitutes. There are a ton of meat substitutes at the supermarket nowadays, which is super exciting, but not all of them are healthy. If you ever heard of Impossible, Beyond, Gardein, there are so many like frozen brands of meat substitutes. They taste delicious. Definitely love them, but they aren't very healthy for you. They're full of processed ingredients. They're usually high in sodium, high in fat. So if you're going to eat those, I would do it sparingly. They're really good for if you're a meat eater and you're trying to transition over into vegan, plant-based, vegetarian, whatever route you want to take. Those substitutes are great because it's kind of like it bridges the gap into going in the meat-free direction, but they're not a health food. So if you do eat them, I would suggest eating them minimally or sparingly. I love Impossible. There's a lot of products I like. Impossible has just nailed it with their flavor, but I try not to have it very often. So I'll have like a Impossible or Beyond burger on the weekend. Weekdays, stay away from it. It is fun to experiment with though because they have some pretty great products out there, but I would recommend eating them in moderation. Luckily, there are a ton of meat substitutes out there though that are good for you. First one I want to mention is tofu. So tofu used to scare me. It took me forever to start cooking with it. I thought it was boring and bland and a little intimidating because I didn't know what to do with it. Flash forward, nowadays it is amazing. I use tofu weekly. I've made chocolate pies out of tofu, ricotta, fried chicken, you name it. Tofu is very, very versatile. It's made from soybeans pressed down. There is not really much flavor at all in tofu, so it really depends on how you cook it, what you cook it with, the seasonings, the marinade, all that good stuff. The next meat substitute I'd like to mention is tempeh. So tempeh is made from fermented soybeans pressed down into like a cake or patty, whatever you want to call it. Tempeh is great as well. I don't cook with it nearly as much as tofu, but I've made like a BLT and it's made into bacon, stir fries. It's very versatile as well. It has a bit more of a taste to it, so you have to kind of season it and marinate it a little bit more, but it is still a great substitute option. Next on my list is a product that I just started using, which is called soy curls. So soy curls are cooked whole soybeans that are dehydrated and then textured without chemicals. So if you look at the back of soy curls, it's just one ingredient. They are, like I said, dehydrated. So you soak them in water to fluff them up, if that's the right word, and then you squeeze out the water and you cook them. You can put them in stir fries, you can barbecue them, make them into like chicken, you can shred them up and make them into taco meat, sloppy joes. They are very versatile as well. I don't think it really has much of a taste to it, so it pulls in the flavors similar to tofu. Next on my list is jackfruit, and jackfruit is actually a fruit. It's a massive yellow globby looking fruit. You can buy it at certain supermarkets. I've never bought it in the whole fruit form. I always buy it canned because it's already chunked and then it's easier to cook with. One day I'm sure I'll buy the fruit, but for now I just buy it canned. It's easy to store that way. My favorite recipe to make with jackfruit is pulled barbecue jackfruit sandwiches. So instead of like pulled pork, you take the jackfruit and you shred it up and you cook it. It gets very tender. It takes in all the flavors around it. Again, similar to soy curls and tofu, it doesn't have much flavor to it, so it really pulls in whatever you're cooking really nicely. Beans and legumes also make wonderful meat substitutes. So a lot of veggie burgers that are not processed, like the Impossible Beyond, if you make them from home, you're probably going to be using beans or greens. There's other ways to make them, but a lot of them are bean burgers. Beans take on flavors nicely, they hold together, and they're delicious and wonderful for you as well. I also really like to use vegetables as meat substitutes. So like cauliflower wings, you take the cauliflower and you dip it in batter with some sauce and you air fry it or cook it in the oven. Again, cauliflower doesn't really have a strong taste, so it's nothing, it doesn't take away from it. You just taste the breading and the seasonings, which are great. Another vegetable that comes to mind would be carrots. So carrot dogs are pretty big in the plant-based world. You can turn carrots into hot dogs. I once did carrot corn dogs, and I know that sounds to like a meat eater that's like, okay, you need to settle down. You're not turning carrots into hot dogs. It takes on the flavor nicely. You can cook it just right. I mean, it's not exact, but it actually is pretty good. All the meat substitutes that I just mentioned are very whole food, plant-based oriented. So if you look at the packaging, it's just that single ingredient. Carrots, obviously that's just carrots, making them into corn dogs or hot dogs. Soy, tempeh, all of those things I mentioned before are just single ingredients. You compare that to the processed burgers at the store, and there's like 20 ingredients, a lot of things we can't pronounce. So there's a drastic difference between the processed version versus the whole food plant-based, which is going to provide nutrients, high in fiber, vitamins, minerals. You're getting a lot more from it than the processed stuff. Like I said, I cook a lot with tofu, tempeh, jackfruit, all the things I mentioned. So if you're looking for recipes, make sure to check out my online cookbook. I'll add a link to that below. If you have a plant-based nutrition topic that you would like me to discuss next, please let me know that in the comments below as well so I can address it in my next video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.